What's better than earning money from a 9-to-5 job? It's earning money while you sleep, which is made possible if you start investing. You're listening to the Real Estate Investing Demystified with your very own dynamic duo, Ava Benisaki and August Biniaz. Tune in as we discuss everything real estate, both on the passive and active sides. We feature life-changing stories of today's real estate leaders that will help build your own roadmap to success. This is a show that will lead you to a diversified portfolio, a much bigger revenue, and a next-level venture that brings you a smooth cash flow. Let's get this episode started. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Demystified show. Ava Benisaki here, and you all know Mr. August Biniaz. It's actually his birthday today. Happy birthday, August.
Happy birthday.
And I said, August, should we cancel the guest speaker on Thursday as it's your birthday? And he's like, I am so proud to
sit back a bit.
I
think you're too little.
Am I a little too loud?
Yeah, that's perfect.
I am so proud to be doing our YouTube show on my birthday. So that was something that we're excited to be here today.
Exactly.
Particularly excited today because I have a good friend of mine that's on the show, Liza. We actually co-authored a book together, From Ordinary to Extraordinary. And for people who have bought the book or, there she has it. There she has it. Really cool. We wrote this book, I think around 3-4 years ago now.
3 years ago.
Oh, wow. Time flies. And we're actually going to go back to the 10 women who wrote their chapters in the book. And we're going to get everybody to add to their chapter of some of the success that they've had in those past 3 years.
Nice.
So we're really excited about that. Anything to add?
Are you guys going to rewrite a new version of the book?
It's going to be, Liza, how are we going to do that?
Answer that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to basically do like an ebook update of, hey, this is all the things that have happened in the last 3 years, right? We came out of COVID. We've had some successes. We've had some struggles. We're in a real estate spin cycle. How do we manage that? So some of us have continued. Some are like running the hell away from real estate as far as we could possibly get. Some of us are investing in other businesses. So we'll do an update ebook. And then what we hope to do, kind of following up after that, is adding some new authors and getting some new stories. So that will be a follow-up to where are we now? What did we accomplish? What have we struggled with? And then onwards we go.
I love it. And the book is really too, Liza really she has lots of passion on trying to get women to invest in real estate and kind of come together and motivate one another. So that's really exciting stuff. And if August has anything to add, go ahead. But I wanted to actually share some key statistics on the difference between women and men investing in real estate. Because some of these stats are really incredible. And Liza's they're shocking. And Liza's literally out there trying to empower women to invest in real estate and really change their lives around. So one of the stats was, historically, real estate investing has been male dominated. I mean, a lot of people know this, but as recent studies, women make up about 30% of real estate investors.
Not much?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but on a personal level, what we've actually experienced at CPI Capital on a deal that we just closed, Atlas at Bay Point Apartments, we actually had 57 investors. It was a $17 million acquisition, which 5 of them were women investors. Okay, so that was only 8% of our investors were women, which was really shocking to me, but it is what it is. So proud of the women who invested. So good for you. Another stat was women investors tend to be more conservative than men. So they often focus on like stability instead of that, an income generation rather than high risk, high reward. So women usually tend to invest in residential real estate, as men are more lean towards that commercial real estate.
Well, you think commercial is more risky than residential?
Well, I don't think so, but it depends on.
There's some reasons behind it, right? And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that. But yeah,
we will. Yeah, we'll definitely get all into that.
Yeah.
The next one is studies have shown that women generally have lower risk tolerance compared to men. So it's really hard for them to really take that step.
So they don't do any fix and flips and ground up developments then, because that's the most riskiest part of real estate. If you do ground up development
and ground up development,
yeah.
Well, I'm sure there's probably 30% of women that have no problem getting
when they say investors, like that's very broad thing to say. Investor is investor somebody buying their primary residence. Is that considered
first time buyer? Yeah,
that could be a first time home
Yeah, and
Yes,
I can speak to some of that.
yeah.
So
Let's
I'm putting it in my
yeah.
mind here.
Sure.
Okay,
These are all great stats, Ava. Let's get Liza. Let's go through the kind of regular sequence of our show. So we had our initial kind of.
But it's important for people to kind of understand these stats, because this is kind of what Liza backs is her WREN group, her woman real estate investing network, which is very powerful. So I really wanted to share some of these stats so that people are like, oh wow, okay, this is very interesting. There are some positive things as well. Like women are accounted for 19% of home buyers in the US, single women, and 9% are men. But in Canada, it's 25 to 30% of women that will own their home, and 15 to 20% of men.
These are single?
These are single family.
So it's very important to specify that. So when it comes to single men or single women buying their primary residence,
their home,
both in Canada and the US, more women own their primary residence than men do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe the men are out there using that money to be able to find a woman. So they're buying cars and clothes and,
that's probably where those stats are from, actually.
So let me know when you want me to jump in with some of the additions, because August, you're bringing up some really good points.
Yes.
So what's also behind these stats? So the stats are sometimes shocking, and the stats are, they kind of make you go, and then you kind of start to peel off those layers and you look at what's behind the statistics. So that's where you get into the juicy stuff.
So let's go ahead and introduce our guest. We've had Liza on our show before. It was an interesting show. I rewatched it before getting on our show today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest, Ava, and we can start the show.
I would love to. So Liza Rogers, she is a dynamic force in both real estate investment and community development. She has 30 years of experience spanning global tourism, events, and real estate investment, and she brings a unique perspective to her work. So from managing international vacation properties to leading groups on European river cruises and overseeing...
You're not going to read all that, are you?
...eco guest houses in Australia.
3 pages.
Liza's diverse background has shaped her holistic approach to real estate. Now, she's the founder of Women's Real Estate Network, WREN, based in British Columbia, and Liza is committed to fostering collaboration and empowerment, particularly for women in real estate industry. So welcome to the show, Liza. We're so happy to have you here today.
I'm happy to be here. It's nice to see you both again, August and Ava. And great to be here and great to talk about all things real estate and investing and empowerment and lifestyle, because really we're investing in real estate because we want a particular lifestyle and we want a particular future for ourselves, our families, and our communities. And I know you guys have a growing family, and so that's really important to you. And and that's
let's get into it. Let's get into it this way, okay? So I was raised by a single mother and 2 sisters. So grew up in an all women's household. My mom literally blood, sweat, and tears raised us and built me as a man I am today. And I wouldn't really call myself a feminist. I think that women don't need for you to be their cheerleader for them to be successful. The ones that are great are just great at what they do. Currently, so that comes there, and the company that I co-founded is run by a woman. She's a CEO. She's also my wife. So keep in mind that some of the critical items that I might bring up, or being the devil's advocate, is not coming from a place of masculinity or anti-woman. If there's any woman cheerleader, I'm the poster child of it. But let's talk about this at the core of it. Why do women even need to have a support network when it comes to real estate investing, financial literacy? Are they handicapped in this world? Is it that men have taken over and they have a monopoly where they don't let women get involved? Is it because that men are just better at it? What is it? Why do you guys let's talk about the core of what you do, really. Liza.
August, I love this. And I love the fact that we're talking about the whole feminism thing and feminists, because I don't actually call myself a feminist either. I don't like the terms toxic masculinity. There's nothing toxic about being masculine, right? So I think there's a lot of things that feminism has actually done to injure the relationships between men and women. And what we are trying to maybe find our way back to in the culture that we're living in right now is let men be men and let women be women. Mm-hmm. We're biologically programmed, and yes, there's a whole spectrum of where we are, but we're fighting each other with where we're supposed to be. So to answer a couple of those questions, I mean, I love working with men. Like, I absolutely love working with men. But when I was going to real estate conferences in the early days, going to Real Estate Investment Network with Don Campbell and Patrick, and, you guys are involved with REN, and going into the US with Fortune Builders and Than Merrill. These are great guys and they are doing great things. And I love being in a room with them. But there are a lot of women who just have some fear around being in that room with the guys. And women just invest differently, right? We are the community builders. We are the nurturers. We are more collaborative than competitive. And so there's nothing wrong with either investment style, right? It's just we have to recognize, instead of trying to eliminate the differences between men and women, we need to celebrate them and say, men bring this to the table, women bring this to the table, and women have been bringing things to the table for a shorter period of time in the business world. And so we're just kind of not used to playing in each other's sandboxes yet. So I'm really excited about having a platform for women, but we welcome men and we're opening it up to more men now. And part of that is because, and I'm just going to be honest here, I get frustrated sometimes with the ladies because they take too damn long to make decisions sometimes. So I'm getting to that point now where I've laid the foundation for the women. The Women's Real Estate Network has been around now for 8 years. And we've done a ton of interesting stuff. We've done investments, we've done land development, we bought apartment buildings. We're looking now at boutique hotels. We're looking at the longevity of women because we are living longer. So we need a longer runway. We need to build wealth for potentially 8 to 10 years longer than your average man. And I think the key point as to why do women need a network is because women have actually only had full control over their own money for less than 50 years. So it's
they
still
didn't have a right
to
to. They didn't even have the right to vote. I mean, you can see in some of those backwards countries in certain places around the world, some in Middle East, some other places, women don't have some basic rights and they're forced to dress a certain way. But country that I'm from, Iran, I mean, women are still obligatory headscarf and what have you. So the Sharia law or what have you. So yeah, there's lots of backward stuff when it comes to that around the world. But when the pendulum swings, right? But when it does swing the other way, I mean, the same thing with homosexuals. It was really difficult to be a homosexual. That pendulum swing, but now you have it too extreme on one side. Some people would say with gay prides and men walking naked and promotion of homosexuality in schools, the woman movement as well. What I personally dislike is I love free market capitalism. I love the best to be where they're at. But if you're doing it just out of show, if you're doing it just to get that quota, if you're doing it for optics, I don't appreciate that. But if women are really great at what do, like Ava's dynamic within CPI Capital initially was supposed to be, our plan was for it to be so totally different about her position in the company. But when she came on, and the conversations she would have with investors, be it even some of the high net worth, super sophisticated ones, she just connected with them a lot better than our IR team or even myself personally or other team members. So she just took the lead there. Also, our communication with our investors, her input about marketing, a lot of different systems and processes. She came in and she did a way better job than myself or anybody else could do. So she actually excelled at that and she got the position. It wasn't for optics purposes, but at times in corporate world, the pendulum has swung so much that's where you see. So going back to kind of what you're doing, what do you see as a woman investor's Achilles heel? Is it the fact that they're risk averse, which is sometimes a good thing in business? Or is it the fact that they're so risk averse that they don't even take that first step? What is it?
I think it's the fact that it's still, generally speaking, a new concept for a lot of women. Because if you think about the fact that women still had to have their husbands sign for their mortgage up until the 1980s in North America. We're not talking about the Middle East. We're not talking about developing countries. We're talking about if you were a woman and you went in to buy a house, the first question that you were asked by the banker within 50 years was, where's your husband, right? Where's the person who's signing on this account? So when you look at the fact that men have had access to property and really, globally speaking, for millennia, right? The kingdoms controlled the villages. The villagers fed the kingdoms. The villagers were protected by the kingdoms. And so free market capitalism, and this is, I mean, gosh, we could write a book on this, right? How the industrial age kind of, broke us free of that. And post World War II, everybody's all of a sudden able to access automobiles, buy those single family homes, move out to the suburbs. And so many more people in the world have owned property in the short period of time. Like in the last 100 years, the number of people globally who now own property is, hundreds of times more than it was pre-World War II. And then before that, there was also a massive jump. So, we look at those black swan events, we look at massive global movements forward. And so there's a number of things with women. We're getting into a lot of the weeds here, but the birth control pill suddenly gave women power to not necessarily be in a position where they're going to have 5 to 10 children. Now they can choose how many children they have in many parts of the world. And so when you can have control over how many children you bring into the world, and so many people, I mean, we know right now we actually have a crisis globally because people are not having enough children. That's again another whole conversation we can have. And many women are staying single. So there's a couple of things at play here. First of all, we need the guys to step up, right? Like we want successful men. We want, a lot of women, if you ask them, like, what kind of man are you looking for? We're looking for a man, like, I mean, that seems so obvious, but, we're looking for someone who, has traveled the world, who understands business, who's had some struggle, who knows how to pick himself up and dust himself off and go forward. And with women, to get back to that real answer to your question, it's just been, we've had such a short period of time playing in the sandbox. It's 50 years where we've really been like, okay, I've got my own credit card. I've got my own bank account. I've started my own business with no co-signers. And that is still very new. And so, it's kind of like we're teenagers on the evolutionary scale, and we're figuring out what our next steps are. Now, we talked a little bit about some statistics, and because so many women are staying single, more single women who are not getting married or not having children, and I'm one of those, not necessarily by choice, it's the way that things have worked out so far, right? Mm-hmm. I'm 55. It's probably unlikely that I'll have kids, but I'm still hoping the man of my dreams is out there.
You look great for 55, by the way.
Well, thank you very much.
You look amazing.
Those Zoom filters are fabulous. But part of the key is that we're not waiting for a man anymore to make those big decisions. And so to your point about, 19% of single women are buying houses, whereas only 9% of single men are buying their first, we're talking houses, or their first residential property. That's because women aren't waiting. Now, there's an interesting thing that Kim Kiyosaki said quite a few years ago. And I think, we're talking about some of the things that we got wrong. She made a statement in one of her books, and she's married to Robert Kiyosaki, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
No longer. They're no longer married.
But longer married, right?
Yes.
But she made this very pointed statement that, kind of became a mantra for a lot of women. The statement is, a man is not a plan. And that's a really scary thing when you think about it, because we've got this generation of women who are now thinking, oh, well, I can do everything else on my own. I don't need a man. But a man should be part of the plan, right? A man should be part of your plan, because one of the things that we're crisis right now is loneliness. The global epidemic suffering from right now is the epidemic of loneliness. Men are really struggling with that. Women are, kind of collaborating and connecting together. And I use my mom's community in Mexico, 50 expat women who, they're all they're senior citizens. I'm probably going to write a book about them when I go down there this year, because they are literally the poster women and poster people for how we need to live in our retirement, in community, using economies of scale, having a great life, sharing, having each other's backs. I mean, when I talk about them, I literally get full body goosebumps, because they are the epitome of how we want to be living our lives.
I love
No,
that.
it's interesting
And
you say
I
that.
wanted to say one more thing.
Yeah, yeah.
About you're like, do men just do better? Maybe a lot of women too. As time has went on, women are kind of, I don't know if it's pressured or because more women are single, or even me growing up with my both my parents, they both worked. My mom was working, my dad was working. There is this attractiveness also for men looking at women when women do have that independence as well. So I think women are also looking at how well men were doing real estate and saying, "Hey, look at me. I could probably let me look up to them." There's an admiration there as well,
Yes.
and let me see how I can do
So,
it too.
so what the point I wanted to, so I kind of asked the question from Liza about the caveats and the difficulties women have in business and in investing.
Yeah.
And we touched on that. Now, what are the competitive advantage things that women have that you've seen over the last years that they just inherently do it better than men? Is it that is it the
Collaboration.
connection with other collaboration?
Yeah. I mean, that's such an easy answer. We're natural community builders, right? We are the relationship builders. And so, again, another thing that we're talking about a lot lately, Simon Sinek and Steve Bartlett did a great talk recently on Diary of a CEO about relationships and friendship. And again, this is one of those things where women are succeeding and men are really struggling. Men aren't building friendships. If you ask a lot of your guy friends, especially the younger guys, if you had an emergency and you couldn't reach your family, which friend would you call? And a lot of them don't have an answer. And that's
Wow.
heartbreaking. I mean, one of the things with WREN, and this really kind of circles to being a great kind of answer to the question. One of the things with WREN, when I started the community, I'm a single woman. I was brought up by a single mom. And there are massive advantages and disadvantages to being in that situation. And so my mom is part of my why, and the life that I want to build for myself is part of my why. I don't want to be a woman who, reaches 65 and is dependent on the government and doesn't have assets and doesn't have a community and is alone dying watching television, right? Which how many people do we hear that happens to? So when I started WREN, the core reason for starting it was to build a collaborative group of women together, like-minded, who loved traveling, who wanted to spend half a year, being remotely working or living overseas, and have that community to say, hey, we've built our real estate empire and our investment empire, and now we can go and live in Thailand for 6 months, or we can go and live in Mexico for 6 months because we've done that and we've done it together. And now we've got these friendships. And you know what? It's actually happened.
Yes.
Like, it's actually worked. When I went down to Mexico last year, again, using my mom's circle of friends as an example, I had 3 friends come down. 3 of my friends came down. They stayed with me and my mom and my mom's friends, and they're all, they look at this group of women and they're like, that's who we want to be when we grow up. Mind you, these are all like
That's
women
beautiful.
my age. They're 55 years old and they're looking at these 70, 80-year-old women saying, this is who we want to be when we grow up. And so that collaboration, that, building friendships, nurturing friendships, right? Friendships, relationships of any kind. You guys are married. You know what it's like. It takes work. You don't wake up every day and say, oh, we're going to have another easy day of being in love, right? It takes work. It takes effort. And friendships are so important nowadays because so many marriages aren't working. We don't necessarily have the same kinds of marriage longevity, but we have life longevity. People are living to 80, 90, 100 years old. How much of that do you want to spend by yourself?
Yeah. And that's what I love about the community that you built, Liza, because I mean, if you ask anybody, how easy is it to make a friend? It's really not an easy thing to do. I mean, if you ask somebody.
Yeah, I guess to me, I think it's super easy.
Yeah.
Right? It's so easy, but it's just, I mean, it's as easy as picking up the phone. But
Yeah, but
how
guys,
many people pick up the phone these days?
If you go back and look at this kind of more on the evolutionary and historical perspective, men are competitive.
Yeah.
We compete with each other for everything, for food, for status, and this is again, modern civilization is in somewhat play for the last 10,000 years. We're talking about a few million years of, our species, the Homo sapien being around, or the sapien, there's multiple different, there's a Homo deus, there's Neanderthal. But anyways, our branch has been there for, what is it, few million years.
Yeah.
And we've been kind of competing with each other and killing each other, all kinds of stuff. But the women have been there,
helping each other,
protecting, keeping,
nurturing each other.
It matches that. When it comes to collaboration, it matches that. But kind of let's continue the conversation here. What you've built works perfectly for women who want to get involved and get started in real estate investing, feel comfortable to invest and build something and collaborate and meet partners and so on. But Ava and I, myself, we're in the commercial real estate space, particularly multifamily, syndication, fund management, real estate, private equity, all those big words in our space in the last 5 years, more than 5 years now. It's rare for us to see a woman in any type of executive position. Ava has a good friend who actually, is one of the rare people who manages the private equity firm, the fund, and she's definitely a trailblazer. But they're very rare. Almost always, except the item that I just touched on, is always men, unless they're in a position of sales and they're there to, sell a service or a product. Have you guys internally, because you've been in it for 8 years, have you guys ever spoke about breaking into that space when it comes to commercial real estate? Why is it that we don't see a lot of women when it comes to places in commercial real estate? Again, it's somewhat anecdotal. I don't have data to back it, but we've never seen, for example, somebody doing underwriting or somebody doing project management, somebody doing analysis. It always seems to be men. Is it, again, does it go back to kind of evolutionary DNA that doesn't interest women?
I actually did some research on this too, a little stat for you. In Canada, there's about
your stat. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, there's about 3% of women who are leadership roles in real estate private equity. And on the REIT side, there's about 40 in Canada.
Yeah.
Let's say there's about 40 REITs.
Yeah.
There's about
public REITs.
There's about 2 to 5 women that are CEOs of those.
Really?
REITs.
So like 5 to 10%.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, that's
great. These are great questions, and these are great conversations to have. I mean, gosh, we could probably do like a full weekend workshop on this because it's so interesting. And I mean, I could go deep and deep and deep and peel back the layers. And I know we've got a limited amount of time, but I think it's a combination of things. So first of all, talking about the competition and the collaboration, and you talked about matching, right? We are unique, and we do, men do compete, and we have to stop looking at that as a bad thing. That's who you are. It's not toxic masculinity. It's who you are. It's biology, right? That competition was needed in our evolution because you had to protect the village. You had to compete. You had to compete with the lions and the tigers and other tribes. So we have to stop looking at that as, oh my God, that was so bad. Like this is where I think we're starting to, the pendulum is starting to swing back now. We've gone really far with the woke brigade, and I think we're starting to swing back a little bit. So yeah, competition's great. I mean, we just watched the Olympics, right? The people who are the best in the world, who have trained, who have sacrificed, who have, painfully gone through processes and mindset and vision and to get to the place that they are. And that's inspiring. It's so inspiring. And there's nothing wrong with being competitive. Being competitive gives us things to look up to and look at with pride and with, wow, like, look at how great that person did. And then on the other side of that is the awesome thing that the women bring more to the table, which is the nurturing, the community. We needed the women in the village to, it takes a village to raise a child, right? There's that whole thing. And I'm using the village concept a lot lately because one of the things I'm working on is a program that helps get people back to the village, right? Get your multi-generational families together, buy the villa in Italy, and everybody move back and live off the land, right? And there's, get your group of best friends together and buy a 5-bedroom house in Kitsilano and live in that when you're retired rather than living on your own. The piece is that we have to celebrate the collaboration and the competition. And we're just starting to learn that we can work with these things together. So to your point, August, about how many women CEOs there are and how many women who are in this space, it's only been open to women for a shorter period of time. And so there's a number of places where women are finding their natural leadership fits, community building. You see a lot of women in the nonprofit spaces. I mean, interestingly, when I started WREN, the number of people who gave me shit for starting it as a for-profit organization rather than a nonprofit. It's like, how can you not have WREN as a nonprofit organization? I said, because I want to teach women that it's okay to be profitable. That we should be aiming towards being profitable, because we can do way more when we've got money in our genes than when we can't. Get to the point where you're profitable, get to the point where you've put yourself first and you've built your empire, and then you can go out and change the world. It's much harder to change the world if you're going from a place of, the starving student or poverty, or leading a protest down the street rather than having a foundation with, millions of dollars of endowment. So I think the opportunities for women to enter those spaces, they're now here, and now women are just trying to find their way in. And I think the other thing, again, that we can come back to is, what are women interested in, right? Like, if I have my druthers, am I interested in underwriting or being a CEO in a real estate corporation? That might not be where my actual interest lies. Like, one of the things we talk about often is my background is tourism and events. For all of the land development that I've done, the numbers that I've crunched, my passion is in hosting really great dinner parties.
And you're really good at it.
I'm really good at it, right?
Yeah.
So I love bringing my mini United Nations communities together with people that I've traveled with and gotten to know from all over the world, and sitting down to dinner with, having like 8-hour dinners and wine and solving the world's problems, because we've got a multi-generational, multicultural, multi-socioeconomic group of people. And we sit down and we all realize we want the same things.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that group. Let's talk about a journey. Somebody hears about your group, possibly from this podcast or otherwise. Talk to us about their journey to take. They get in touch with you. What happens? Do they come in? Is there do you assess them? Do you triage them? Do you see where they fit the best? And then I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah, exactly. So we've changed quite a bit. When we first started, I wanted to help everybody, right? And you can't. I would get people phoning me saying, "Oh, I'm a single mom and I don't have a job and I don't have any money, but I really want to buy a house," right? Like, I'm like, okay, there's a few steps you need to take first. So I'm not the person that's going to be able to help you yet. So now we have a quiz that we send out, and we find out where people's levels are, and we ask that people who come into the group that they're going to participate. Because one of the things that you want when you're forming a group of, high-powered, intentional, let's call it an intentional community where we all want to grow together, that means you've got to do some work. There is no passive investing per se, right? If you're going to be a passive investor, you become a passive investor because you've done the work to understand what that is. And that now you've got the luxury of being able to say, yeah, I've read the 80-page offering memorandums. I've done the due diligence with the lawyer. I've looked at the properties. I've looked at the REIT. I've talked to my financial advisor, and now I can invest in this and kind of sit back a little bit. So what we're working through now is finding women who they've got some capital. They're often too busy. They want to collaborate because collaboration is easier. I often say, share the risk and the reward, and then share the rest and the relaxation. I'm coming to you from the apartment building that we bought in Victoria. So I'm in an 8-unit apartment building right across the street from the beach. I have a beautiful ocean view. We bought this building on 15,000 square feet of land for $3.5 million, right? We've got 8 units in it. We can develop it. We can probably build 2 sixplexes in the future, or a 12-unit condo. But we own the land, we own the building, we own everything. And a group of friends got together and did this. And we have people sometimes drive by on bicycles who are like, "Oh, I was looking at buying that building once." And I'm like, "We did." And then there's often an hour-long chat ensues. Yeah. But it's about getting people together and actually being able to do that. So
got it.
So women who are coming in now are coming in with a little bit more knowledge, and men, like, we're definitely, as I say, we're getting more men coming in. They're coming in with a bit more knowledge. And now they can take some of those steps, right? So now it's like, okay, what are we going to buy next? Well, now we're going to buy a boutique hotel property in Mexico. Maybe we're going to look at a boutique hotel in Florida, because I want to come hang out with you guys more often.
Yeah, she's been talking about it nonstop. I'm going to So, Liza, you started WREN back in what year?
2016.
Okay, so you've seen the growth of WREN, right? And it's really grown over the years. I think the last time we spoke, you were saying Ava, there's tons of people that want to be involved, that want to apply to come join WREN. And it's really grown a lot over the years. So it seems like there's been a lot more women that are kind of flooding in to learn more.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's happened, like first, we went through COVID, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago, so we came out. We've tried pivoting a couple of times, and now it feels like we're just making a lot of changes now that we're going to kind of see in September and into the new year. Getting more into the coaching because a lot of people want to take the action, so they don't necessarily want just the information. They want the let's go and do this week, right? So more coaching, more action, getting people in who are more likely to take action, right? So as we've talked about, women sometimes don't take action. So we're really getting people to commit to doing something for themselves, growing their growth mindset, whatever it is, as long as they're growing. Maybe real estate isn't their jam, but looking at having a second or third income stream. I mean, anybody who has got a regular job, if you haven't got a side hustle or something invested, whether it's in yourself or in a small business, your retirement is not looking that great, right? So now we're growing. We've got community leaders that we're bringing on in different cities. So they're going to focus on a lot of the things that people are really interested in. People are interested more now in private lending, private equity, as you've talked a lot about. Whole life insurance has come up a lot. Obviously, multifamilies, and a lot of the things that we're also talking about now is what not to do. I mean, we've learned some really hard lessons in the real estate spin cycle that we've been in the last few years. And so what we share a lot now is, oh my gosh, don't do this because we did
these
it.
are some common
really
mistakes.
Hard.
Yeah.
And I think one of the messages that we are repeating over and over and over and over again is real estate is not a short-term game. And you guys may have heard me say this before, but the HGTV romance where people are like flipping houses with, really nice looking guys on TV. It's like, that's not the reality. It was great for a short period of time when, the market was just going through the roof and you could take any crappy looking house and, lipstick on a pig, and as they say, and turn it and flip it and make money. But that's not the reality. And that's not the long-term play. So what we're really ensuring that the message is real estate investing done well takes a team, which we all know, and takes time. And it shouldn't be looked at as anything less than a minimum of 5 years. If you can't get in and hold on to whatever it is you bought for a minimum of 5 years, then the answer should just be don't do it, because you might be taking too much of a risk.
So, talk to us. So you talked about market cycles. We're in a somewhat of an interesting market cycle currently. The interest rates are finally being brought down a bit. Bank of Canada has done it twice now, and I think there's an 80% chance that the U.S. Fed will also reduce rates in their September meeting, FOMC meeting. What have you guys noticed? More on the grassroots side, where you're helping people kind of buy their first investment property or smaller multiplexes. What has there been any difficulties on that side? Talk to us about what you've felt over the last maybe couple of years here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the number of people who got into pre-sales, right? I mean, there were a number of people who bought pre-sales that are completing now.
And just for our audience, in case they don't know what pre-sales are, like particularly here in Canada, there's a lot of condos going up, and a lot of people come in and buy, put a nominal amount down, 5 or 10%, sometimes it might be a little more, and they basically hold the contract on this condo that's going to be built in 4 or 5 years. Particularly in Vancouver, it takes a long time. It's not like the US, things don't go up fast. It takes a long time. So by the time now you put down 5 or 10, you bought $1 million condo, you put down 10%, $100K, but because the market has gone up so much, particularly here in Vancouver or let's say Toronto, now you've built so much equity in your
$1 million turns into,
it's not $1 million. Your 100K you've put down now is worth much more without actually even owning real estate or getting debt on it. Right. So a lot of people would buy these things. It was an actual investment strategy, and they would flip it before the building was either fully completed, before they got the keys, or they would actually buy it. So there's
it was worth $1 million, and then they could sell it for 1.2.
Well, yeah, like let's say it was
Yeah.
worth 1.2 now, so their 100K turns into 300.
300K.
So
Yeah, exactly.
in a few years. So
Yeah.
it was, but yeah, keep going. I just want.
Well, and again, it was one of those kind of short-term investment strategies. And when I say short-term, right, we know in Canada everything takes a long time. But if you talk about like a typical pre-sale, just as you mentioned, you invest, you're looking at it through the lens of, oh, the market's good right now. We're projecting that the market's going to be good. We're projecting this condo is going to be worth, X number of dollars within 3 months of it being finished. We're going to assign it, right? So as you mentioned, we're going to flip it over to a different seller. We're going to make some money because we got into the pre-sale early, took the risk with the developer saying, we trust that you're going to get this done. This is going to be complete. And then people who are your short-term rental investors, your first-time home buyers, they're going to buy closer to the finished product. So what happened with a lot of the pre-sales that were purchased 2 to 3 years ago that are now completing, the value has actually come down. So people were like betting on things to be worth $600,000 or $700,000, and now they're down to $400,000 or $500,000.
Right.
So people are freaked out a little bit about owning pre-sales. Some people are walking away, so they're losing their $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 deposit. People are partnering on their pre-sale. So one of the things that, again, when you have the right team, you get all of the information and you do your due diligence. But there are so many unsophisticated buyers who bought pre-sales thinking that for sure they'd be able to flip them, who aren't in a position to be able to close on the property. And so if you can't close, what do? Like, if you can't close, you've lost the property. So they're having to sell at a loss. They're walking away. So there's a lot of things that are happening around the market. So, this is just one aspect of what's happening with the market that we're talking about. So what are people looking at? In my world, they're definitely looking at more multifamily, because that, especially in a place like BC. So if you take British Columbia, where I happen to be now, the government has interfered. All levels of government have interfered in the housing market, right? In the rental market, in the development market, in every part of the market, the short term, everything. It hasn't worked. They're trying to bring the home prices down and bring the rental market up, not in dollars, but in availability. But they put so many restrictions on developers and potential landlords that landlords are running from BC, right? I'm ready to run. I'm closing loops everywhere on properties because I don't want to be a landlord in BC. There's no benefit. There's no benefit to me taking all the risk and putting myself on the line and being forced to put a tenant, not a short-term guest in one of my properties, as should be my choice, but being forced to put a tenant in who I then can literally not get rid of unless I'm moving in, and then have to move in and have to stay there for a year. And I mean, the restriction on, this is your property that you bought, and you're being told by the government what you can do with it and who you can put in and for how long. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's beyond ridiculous. But there's such a long answer to that question about, what's going on in the market. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of, people are flooding out of Canada. You hear me talk a lot about Mexico. A lot of people are investing in Mexico right now, and Mexico's prices have skyrocketed. Both the cost of living and the prices have gone up about 40% since pre-COVID. So a condo that you used to be able to buy for $200,000 is now, 4 or 5. So it's gone up quite a lot. And so with what we're looking at, we're definitely multifamily boutique hotels, long-term holds. With good cash flow that we can control. And so one of the reasons I like hotels is because the government is not going to come along and say, you can't put a short-term guest in your hotel. It's like, well, why would you own a hotel, right? The short-term industry globally has changed. And I was chatting with another gentleman yesterday about this very thing. Governments are saying no to short-term rentals, while at the same time offering digital nomad visas. So one of the things that's happening globally that we haven't even really talked about yet is we basically are living in a world where we can go work pretty much anywhere in the world. And governments want people with high knowledge, high skills to go and work because they make good money from their home country and they spend it in the local economy. But at the same time, they're shutting down short-term rentals and their local residents are having to pay more for housing. So you're like, what do? You issue the digital visa to people who want to come and work, but you take away short-term rentals. Like,
Yeah, it just totally doesn't add up. Yeah, totally doesn't.
Bizarre world of real estate here in Canada.
Experiencing all the investors' complaints as we were raising capital for our last multifamily deal.
Yeah.
Investors were totally done with what they were.
Yeah, we're short on time here. Anything else you want to share, Liza, about WREN or what you're up to before we get to the 10 championship rounds?
No, I think that that was a good conversation. I mean, it
was great.
we went deep, but yeah, I mean, I think we could go deeper even again, but that was great. So
August is really good at bringing that out in people.
Forgive me, ladies. I didn't want to just sit over here and just make it all, sunshine and rainbows. I had to make it. I had to, bring a little bit of.
No, I thought it was really good, and I think it's important that we do have to talk about the role of women and the role of men. Like we got to play together. And
just listening to you, Liza, it's such a breath of fresh air to hear you the way you speak and your mindset on this, because I could have had a same conversation with others and they would have been flustered. They would have been concerned about optics and how they're looking. They wouldn't have agreed with some certain facts, but I really love that. And that really speaks highly about you. But let's get into a little bit more about who you are. And
Liza, are you ready for the 10 championship rounds of financial freedom?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's do this. Here we go. First question. Who's been the most influential person in your life?
My mom.
My mom. I knew you were going to say that. You're so sweet. Do you want to say why?
A single woman, raised two daughters on a hairdresser's salary, and is living life to the fullest and is such an inspiration. And, I'm so honored that I get to spend so much time with her and her great group of friends in Mexico. I mean, I've been doing that for 5 years now. And I think these ladies know that I'm going to be writing a book about them soon because they are that inspirational. And my mom is an inspiration to everybody she meets. She's a firecracker. She's beautiful. She's impish. People meet her and they look at her and she's got this little devilish twinkle in her eye. And that's just who she is. And she's been a huge inspiration and a huge supporter. And she's just, she's never put any limits on me ever. And she never had any expectations of, being a grandmother or being, walking me down the aisle if I got married. She's just been, love you for who you are. And I love her for who she is.
She sounds so lovely.
How many, you have siblings, Liza?
I do. Yeah, I do.
So how many?
2. One. So there's me and my sister. Yeah. That my mom.
So she was a single mom to both of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Liza, next question. What is the number one book you'd recommend?
Oh, well, of course, it has to be ours, From Ordinary to Extraordinary.
Any other ones?
Other than that, I still go back to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. That is still one of my number ones. And then I think, with what we've been talking about today and how we're having these conversations around culture and society, Douglas Murray, The Madness of Crowds, and The Strange Death of Europe. I mean, I think anybody who wants to get a little bit of a culture shock on what's going on in the world, he's a very controversial figure, but I just think he's fascinating. Douglas Murray.
Cool.
Okay, very cool. Awesome. All right, Liza, if you had the opportunity to travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, this is such a good question, and it's such an easy answer. It's focus and take action now.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. Now, what is the best investment you've ever made?
The investment in myself.
Always the best one.
Always the best one.
Yeah.
What's the worst investment you've ever made? And what lessons did you learn from it?
Gosh, the worst investment, I think there's a few.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably, there might even be one more to come. Who knows? I think there have definitely been investments that I have made that I thought were those short-term investments, and they ended up that they should have been long-term investments. So the lesson I've learned never look at anything from a short-term perspective. If you are getting into something, and especially because I do a lot with partnerships, number one lesson, due diligence with, your whole team. So that's your lawyer, your broker, the deal itself that you're getting into, and your partners. 100% so important, because you're getting married to your business partners, right? And so you got to be able to spend that minimum 5 years with them. Yeah. And so getting into something where you all kind of think it's going to be short term and it ends up being longer term, that just puts a lot of stress on yourself, your finances, and those partnerships that you've been trying to build. So lots of lessons learned from I think you learn more lessons from the deals that go a little bit sideways. And I think the key thing is to learn the lessons rather than just, give up and not do anything after that. It's learn the lessons and keep going.
Couldn't agree more. Love it. All right, Liza, next question. How much would you need in the bank to retire today? What's your number?
It's interesting. Like for me, I could probably say $1.5 million. I don't think I need that much because I can live on the interest. And again, I'm single and I live a great life, but it's not ridiculously crazy, right? I don't need a private jet or anything. So I can live a really good life with $1.5 million giving me good interest every month. And having, some good investments and having good friends around me who want to have a good time together.
Nice.
Perfect. Okay. If you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
What was interesting the other day, someone answered this question and I thought it was a very interesting answer. It was Jesus Christ. Like, I don't necessarily consider myself a religious person, but wouldn't it be amazing to sit down with a figure who has, had more impact globally than anybody else really on the planet? Is there anybody else who is such a, who would be a figure? I think my mom would love me to say Elvis. He would probably be my second choice for my mom's benefit. But I think it would be really interesting to sit down and have a glass of wine with Jesus.
Nice. Cool. All right. Yeah. Okay. Next question, Liza. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing now?
Oh, if I wasn't doing what I'd be doing, I would be doing what I'm working on getting to be doing, which is hosting people in my fabulous portfolio of boutique hotels and saying, come over and have a game of sequence and a glass of wine and, let's go for a walk on the beach and let's talk about all of the things that you're not supposed to talk about, religion and philosophy and politics and solve the world's problems and have fun doing it.
One in Florida, one in Mexico, one over here, one over there. Love it. All right. This is my favorite question, Liza. Book smarts or street smarts?
Street smarts.
Okay. Right on. Yeah. And last question. If you had $1 million in cash and you had to make
$1.5 million in her case, but all right.
$1.5 million in cash and you had to make one investment today, what would it be?
Just one? Oh gosh. Well, I guess because I want to have the boutique hotels, I'd probably find a nice little boutique hotel with some vendor financing. And I'd invest some of the money in that and keep the rest of it in the bank, earning some interest, or in a good passive investment, earning some good interest. Not that, right? Not the bank. Who does that?
Living off that passive income. Love it.
Absolutely.
Love it. All right, Liza, what's the best way people can reach you?
So it's really easy. It's liza@wren.club. So liza@wren.club. And the website is wren.club.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for all your wisdom and knowledge. We really appreciate having you.
Enjoyed the conversation, Liza. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fun. I love the challenging questions, and I loved having those great conversations about differences between men and women, right? Like, let's celebrate those differences instead of trying to eradicate them. We're different for a reason.
100%.
Let's celebrate it. Thanks, Liza.
See you guys later.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope this conversation enlightened you on how to win big in this highly profitable and risk-averse space. Get on your feet and embrace this world that offers so many opportunities just waiting for you out there. Continue your journey to becoming a savvy real estate expert by subscribing to the show at cpicapital.ca. Don't forget to leave a positive rating and share with your friends. See you on the next one.